Good evening, folks.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Pat,
Age.
Trevor, and Chris, and Alicia, and Jeff.
Hey, question.
Same motley crew that was on this afternoon, huh?
Yes, we are. Hey, I don't miss a GOB calendar event if I can help it. Do you guys get the GOB calendar on your iPhones or your cell phones? I tried to get it on there. I only have what I put on the calendar, but I can't get the GOB stuff on there. Is anybody?
Are you iPhone or are you?
I'm iPhone.
Your iPhone.
Yeah.
So
On
the
your
reason
calendar.
I have two links to the calendar, and I don't understand this well enough. Maybe I could ping Keish and get him to come on and explain it, or if someone else knows. You one of those you can view. It's a web viewable, so when you're on the internet, you can see it. The other one, my understanding, is more of a direct integration.
Let me see.
Where you can integrate that calendar with your own calendar. I don't think both of them do that, but I don't know. All I know is that when I uploaded the one for the CRE multifamily virtual meetups on the LinkedIn calendar, everyone seems to be able to integrate it. And, you know, I didn't think that I did anything any different with this one, but I'm not 1000% sure.
I opened the link on from the cell phone to see if the meetings would show up, but they didn't show up. That's weird. I'll figure it out.
Try the other one, or
Okay.
if you don't. I just added a bulletin board in the First Start Here folder,
Okay.
so that as you guys know, with Slack, as long as we have a free account, we're limited to them saving 10,000 messages, and we blew past that a long time ago.
Yeah. I just read.
So for things that are important, we with Davide's suggestion, I started the bulletin board so that really important links, hot links, if you will, or things that people ask for over and over, we'll just put them on that bulletin board. And one of those is the calendar. So if you go in the First Start Here folder and look at the bulletin board, I'd open it from your phone. And I don't remember which one. I think the first one is supposed to be the, it says iCal integration on my end when I upload it. So I'm assuming that's the one that will integrate.
We'll check it out.
Joe, good to see you tonight. So for anyone,
good to see you too. Sorry, a little delayed.
That's okay. For anyone that hasn't been on this particular call, we do this one weekly, and it's really a roundtable, kind of a boardroom meeting meant to address any concerns that you have or any problems that you're having, or challenges, or just things that are on the front of your mind. And so it's really open to pretty much any discussion. And with that, I'll turn it over to whoever wants to kick it off.
So I have an interesting question. I never came across it, but I'm fairly new at this. So I have two brokers that are looking for off-market deals. Broker number one found a deal back in December. I think I mentioned it, and we couldn't get any financials, no T12, no rent rolls, no nothing. He even let me connect directly with the seller, sent some bad financials that we couldn't get anything from. Well, anyways, long story short, broker number two, boom, in my email, the exact same deal, T12, rent roll, everything. And then he called me and I said, oh, I've already seen this deal. So I don't know what to do now. Let me figure out what to do. To which we hung up, and his boss called me back very aggressive and said, we found it, it's ours. And I said, well, I don't know what protocol is. I've told you when I did a deal with you that I was new. So I'm going to talk to some people and find out what's proper and right to do, and whatever it is I will do. He said, what you need to do, young man, and I'm not a young man, it's pretty funny, is delete all that guy's emails and give us the deal. We got you the info.
Yeah.
And I said,
So
well,
that's,
that doesn't sound very fair
no,
at
it's not.
all. And I'm certainly not going to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's proper.
Yeah.
So I talked to a couple of people and everyone said, hey, listen, the first guy didn't deliver. He found a deal, but he never gave you anything to act on the deal.
I agree with that second statement, because I find myself working with some brokers and then some of these so-called off-market ninjas that send you information, and half the time it's not complete, so it's difficult. I spoke with a colleague of mine about a deal down in Atlanta, and he tells me, he's like, oh, look, you know, I have the OM, because I did not get the OM. I just got the T12s and the rent rolls. And so my assumption was, oh, okay, this is an off-market deal. They're not doing an OM for off-market deals, right? But he sends me the OM and says, here it is. And so it's a tough situation when dealing with multiple people. So
Yeah. And,
Well,
and there
I've
is
got
no OM. It's not on market. You know, it was directive cold call by both of them.
So neither broker has it under contract.
I never asked that particular question, but I don't think they do.
I would ask that first, and then that'd be your legal stance. I would think, and I'm not a lawyer, not a broker. I'm gonna anything except the license. I would just ask them that, like, do you have it under contract?
Yeah.
You know, and if they do, then, you know, make your decision there. But I don't know.
Yeah. And the deal I have with them is that they find me a deal, I pay their broker fee, and I'm going to build it into my deal. That's the deal I have with them.
mm-hmm.
And that makes it appealing to the seller that they don't have, you know, they get their full ask and I pay.
So Trevor, who are the brokerages, the name of the brokerages?
So,
And I don't need the name as in the individual, just like, is it CBRE? Is it Marcus Millichap? Is it a local realtor?
yeah, so the first one is a local realtor. So the second guys that found the deal, it's St. Croix Capital Advisors. They're a small independent brokerage firm. And they've also, when we first did the deal with them, even said, you know, hey, listen, if you find a good deal, we're interested in investing too. We might even roll our fee into the investment or whatever. So that was the deal I have with them. And then the other guy is, he's local real estate group with Keller and Williams Realty. That's the first person.
Okay, so the second one, the St. Croix, do they have a license? Are they a broker?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So these are both really, would you classify them both as small boutique firms?
Correct.
Okay, but at the very least, the Keller Williams agent is connected to a larger national firm.
Correct.
And so it does sound like the second guy possibly did a little more work or a little more convincing, or possibly not, because what you find oftentimes is the seller is reluctant. They're not truly ready to sell. They're mentally ready to sell, but they haven't done any work. They haven't put together any numbers. They haven't put together any, you know, and they're just waiting for the broker to do a lot of that. And the broker cannot do a lot of it. They can do some stuff. So if you have the first guy convinced him to sell and told him he needed all this stuff, he didn't provide.
That's
and
correct.
Finally, the first guy gives up. The second guy comes along and says exactly the same thing. And now the seller says, well, shit, I guess everybody's going to ask me for this. I might as well give it up.
Yeah.
So did
and
the
the second guy is a more experienced broker, like multiple. Okay. The first guy that I think he's brand new, like he's green and out of the box, but that also meant he was hungry.
Yeah. So you did not sign any type of forms or exclusivity or any broker agreements with either them.
I have agreements with both of them that says I will pay their commission if they find me a truly off-market deal. Nothing for anything that's already listed. With both of them.
Okay, so having that agreement, you do have a legal obligation to the first guy. So you need to reread your agreement
Yeah.
because, and find out, well, how long does that last? Is that forever? Does it last? He found you that deal. If you don't buy it and it comes back up again in 6 years, do you still owe him? You need
Yeah,
to get
so-
clear on that language. And I would say if you kind of created the document yourself, you may want to ask, Alicia would be a good person to go to. They have a buyer broker's agreement. And I'm sure Keller Williams has a standard one. You could ask Daryl, you could ask David, anyone
Yeah,
else.
they
that's
used a
an active
standard
broker.
one that they edited with an exception of where I made it be very clear that it was an off-market, non-listed property.
Yeah, you want to get clear on how long they have that.
It's a
And that,
year. I signed a year deal at the end of last year. So
no, I'm saying, how long does it last? So if it lasts for a full year, not just the agreement, but each deal, is there a time
Okay, I'll
where
check
if
into
it comes
that.
back around, someone else can offer it to you? Because I agree that if the first guy, just because you have an agreement with him, if he's not performing,
Yeah,
he should not be able to get in between you and getting the deal done if he's not performing. The only thing he is in between. You know, hey, I was smart enough to get in between. I'm not going to do anything, but I am going to get paid. You know, so that's the kind of thing you want to try to get around. And you may want to talk to some people that have done a few of those and see what's
yeah. I've got a call tomorrow with a friend of mine that's a pretty experienced broker. So just, and you know, and he's a friend, so you know, hopefully he'll have
Yeah.
better idea.
And the piece about this that we're not talking about, Trevor, is which one of those guys, if you have to give up one of those relationships, which one is it going to be? And you may not know enough about either one of them yet to make that decision. But you know, you may not be able to salvage. The only way you may be able to salvage this particular one is just to walk away from that deal altogether.
I agree.
Yeah,
And then get your paperwork clarified a little bit better. You know, you don't necessarily need to use a standard agreement. You know, you can create your own if you want to.
yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was just went from nothing to problem.
yeah. And the other thing I would say too, these, as Jeff called them, these ninjas, these
It's
off-market
definitely, this
ninjas.
isn't definitely one of the hustlers. My email's full of those people that don't have anything and they just keep sending it saying it's this with a 3%. I ignore all of that. I did send one to James just because it was in his
Yeah, I
market.
looked at it.
But I have never responded to them other than to say, keep sending it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder where they're getting all that information, but if, you know, I always want to know, number one, are you a broker? Do you have a brokerage license? Number two, if they say no to that, then I want to know, okay, do you have a national account with CoStar or Reonomy or something? You know, otherwise, where are you getting this from? You know, and most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it's just a daisy chain. You know, they've seen it somewhere on the internet and they're passing it along, trying to get in the middle.
Yeah.
Any other input from anybody on that?
What's my thing here? I've never come across any of those guys.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my first inclination was to say, well, I'm sorry, you guys are gonna have to split it. I'll pay you 1.5 each, as best I can do.
Yeah. The second guy, by the way, completely out of line, in my opinion, in what he said to you.
His boss, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, his boss, completely out of line. But as long as that guy is at that brokerage firm, that's going to be the attitude.
Yeah.
Because that flows from the top down. You know, he had absolutely, you know, what he's doing is getting his feathers ruffled because he thinks you're going to try to cut him out of his commission, and he ain't having it.
Yeah.
You know, and they're putting commission above relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it could have definitely handled that much
No,
better.
I definitely agree. I wish he caught me off guard. I wish I was actually more aggressive back.
I know the feeling.
It sounds like he's bordering on the integrity too.
Yeah.
So that's a concern. And if it comes back up, I'd bring that up to him. Hey,
Yeah.
if the roles were reversed, you know, how would
Yeah.
you feel about it?
Yeah, and I have a good relationship with the broker. You know, and when we first made the deal, his boss was on the call. When we
Gotta
made our
consider,
first arrangements.
I would consider if you want to do any business with them going forward. You know,
Yeah, I would, that broker call would definitely give me pause.
Yeah,
It really would. Because if that's kind of the first interaction you have with these guys, when things do get a little bit
yeah,
rough around the edges, a little hairy, how are they going to respond? You know, are they going to be there trying to back you up, or are they just there trying to collect a commission?
yeah.
You know, I'd be a little concerned with that.
I guess how could it, because I signed an agreement like that about a year ago with some ladies on the west side of the state. And how can you like say not protect, but protect yourself from just having this happen? Like instead of using their boilerplate thing, like define off market, you know, what do you go to that length in this contract to say, okay, off market is considered this, you give me T12 rent rolls. I mean, do you do to that extent to kind of, you know, to kind of cover him in that, something like that?
I tell you one thing, if they did not have the kind of access, number one, I would, well, I'll back up. If they didn't have the kind of access that you already have because of the relationships that you have built on the GOB platform, then I would just let that expire, or I would even write a letter saying that I'm terminating the contract. You know, don't send me any more deals. And I would then rewrite if I'm interested in having a local person, but that local person in my mind needs to prove to me they have something that they can bring to the table. And it's very hard to put, if it's a small brokerage, it's been there for 30 years and they know every single apartment owner and they're on every board and, you know, at City Hall, and they don't have CoStar, they don't have Reonomy, they don't have Reese reports, they don't have anything else. All they have is just a deep rooted local knowledge and connections.
Yeah, they both have
That's-
CoStar. They both, and even the second guy that found it, they're much more organized. Like he sent me even his target list, and this is how I've selected them because of size. I've selected them by how long they've owned the property. Like, you know, he did a 3 to 5 year own the property, thinking, okay, they're looking to flip. I mean, he went to that great a detail, and he did share it with us on a document.
Yeah. And if he wasn't that transparent, I wouldn't do anything with him anyway.
Yeah.
I'd want him
yeah.
to be that transparent.
And he's found deals, and we just haven't liked them. We haven't even moved. You know, he's found like probably half a dozen deals, but they were all too just really sketchy. Like they just weren't right.
Yeah.
sounds
And
like
they've
they,
been pretty good when I said that's not what we're looking for. They moved on with no aggravation.
So
So
I
I
would
had a good
also,
year.
I would also say that unless you find that guy that has that super deep local knowledge, and that's going to be hard to quantify, and those kind of guys are not going to be very willing to share too much with you because they know that's their golden goose.
Yeah.
I would argue that you might want to think about just using the brokers that are already on the platform, even if they're not local. You know them, you can trust them, you know how they're going to react to you. They probably would work on a very simplified agreement that
Yeah.
if you find a deal, I have a handshake agreement with several people like that they trust me, I trust them, that if they find something, they're going to get paid. You know, and also, like you said, Trevor, you know, the willingness to put, like David said, you know, I'll put half my commission back into this because I'm doing this to try to build long-term wealth.
Yeah.
You know, and if they are, there's no reason why just because Alicia's in Phoenix doesn't mean she can't call the guy right next door to me. You know, if I don't want to make that call and she's willing to, and I'm willing to pay her to do it. You know, and if she's got better experience with those types of phone calls and is doing a much better job and having a much better success rate than me, then maybe it's worth us, you know, collaborating together like that and letting her do that. and at the same time, I don't know how it works with commercial. Alicia, can you guys list in any state, or do you have to have brokerage in that state? And if you're with a national concern like Keller, how does that work? How does that benefit you, or does it not?
So it usually depends on what the guidelines of the state. So what the state's guidelines are. But for the most part, for Keller Williams, we need to specialize in whatever market we're in. So if we are licensed in multiple states, then we can manage that type of business. If we're not, then we can do one of two things. We can partner with another agent that's within our company. And that could look like various ways where we still stay in the forefront. We make the arrangements, the phone calls, and all of that good stuff, and we pay them a small referral commission, or they do the work and then they pay us a small referral commission based upon the deal. We also have an outside brokerage that helps us out that does all of the work for a small fee. And then we still stay a part of the deal to help it close.
Yeah. And I'll also say that to the young guy, Trevor, that has no experience, sometimes I really like those guys, because sometimes I'll take them under my wing and I'll train them to do what I want them to do. And if their brokerage is not doing a good job of that, they'll really have more loyalty to me than they will to the broker. And which is not, they can continue doing their thing, but they almost have, if they work on, if you give them enough deal flow, say, look, just, I want you to reach out to this one and this one and this one and this one, and start closing a few, just as if you were some other buyer, you become kind of their favorite person to do business with, and you can, and a lot of young guys are really hungry, or gals really hungry, because it's still an all commission business as far as I know.
Yeah.
And, so if you can help them get deals done, they'll do a lot of work for you. And because they're looking for good buyers. They're always looking for good buyers.
So I guess the question, I'm doing this now. I'm doing it in like 4 different states. I'm taking the brokers in that state, calling them and then emailing them, following back in 2 weeks. Would that be a strategy, or something like you're talking about, Jim, is contact, let's say like Alicia, and say, okay, here's the 4 states that I want to go into, and have basically her do that? Is that what you're talking about? Or getting like a broker on the network that's already in, let's say, Atlanta, that does Savannah, Macon, Augusta, instead of me going and trying to build up relationships and keep these on a calendar? I mean, because that's a full-time job. Let's be realistic. It's a full-time job, just keeping everything. What would be your suggestion, something like that, guys? I mean, because that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, I think either one of them are in many other strategies. One's not better than the other. I think that it's going to be really individual. If you and Alicia meet and you really hit it off, and both of you are hungry and both of you have a bandwidth, and you're looking to deploy that bandwidth, and you agree that's a good way to do it collectively, then you run with it. But if she says, man, dude, I really like you. I know we're both on the GOB, but my plate is full. I don't have anything. But, and if you don't know anyone in your local market, I can look on my corporate list and tell you who's there, and if I know any of them, make an introduction, and you can build out that relationship. But at the end of the day, there is something to be said for having that personal relationship. And whether or not they come to you first or second, there's no way around that. You can build a lot of relationships, and they can be very transactional, but if a guy really likes you or a girl really likes you, and they find that deal, you're going to be one of the first names that just pops in their head. And even if they didn't find a deal, you and that person are working on a deal, and for whatever reason, you're kind of dragging your feet. Either you're really busy, or you're working on another deal, or you're not sure that one's just what you want. You know, if they've got a super good relationship with somebody else, they're probably whispering in their ear saying, you know, hey, we've got this other deal. And so it may disappear, you know, while you're dragging your feet because they have such a good relationship with somebody else, you know, even though you were the impetus behind that particular, you know, piece of information.
Gotcha.
I know for sure in a hot market like Central Texas, there's a lot of people way above me in the favorites list. I mean, you know, it's way above. Like I was just at the multifamily network thing and they had brokers up on the stage and they were saying, man, you know, first of all, deal flow is down, but the demands of everything. And, you know, they've all said, all four of the brokers said there is no real such thing as an off market deal. And if there is, the seller's stupid. And the one guy gave an instance where he got like $4.5 million more than, so they did an off market. They got a couple of things in, and then they put it on market for 4 weeks and got $4.5 million more just by putting it out. Another scary thing too, money goes hard day one on any of the hot deals.
Yeah, so I will say that you can get a truly off-market deal, and you can be the only one that ever sees the deal. But 9 times out of 10, if you've got a seller's broker in the mix, the only way that you're going to get that deal is if you overpay for it.
Yeah.
And so I have a deal right now that I'm interested in. And it was offered to me off market. We won't list it, but they had been talking. They've had brokers reaching out to them for 18 months, trying to get them to list this property.
Wow.
So the only way they knew what the brokers would likely put it on the market for, what the whisper price would be. And so they did offer to let me take it down, but for probably close to $1 million more, you know. And in this instance, for the sake of argument here, we'll say that it's a $4 million property and they'll let me take it down for $5 million. So that's how much over whisper, you know.
Why would you
30,
do that?
30, huh?
Why would you do that? Just to
I
get
won't do it.
exclusivity?
Yeah, I won't
Why
do
would-
it, but there are people that will. I'll give you a perfect example. If it's a big institutional buyer
Yeah.
that doesn't want to compete with anyone, and they just want to say, look, I have the property. I'm not planning on selling for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years anyway. So, you know, yeah, I overpaid. It might take me 3 years for the value to catch up to how much I overpaid. But then the next 5 years after that, you know, I still bought the property. I still made money on it. And my return metrics are not the same as yours.
Right.
You know, I don't need to make as much. Maybe I don't need to make anything. Maybe what I'm really buying is a tax shelter. You know, I'm paying, you know, $2 or $3 million in taxes, and I just need to find assets that I can depreciate and take maximum depreciation to claw my money back. So there's different buckets that you can make money, and tax is one of those.
It's definitely not a level playing field in that respect.
No, and you know, I was talking to Julie earlier, right before the call. Then we were discussing what Becker always says, which is this is not a fair game. And it's sad, but it's true.
But it is.
You know, in a situation like that, you know, and the fact that that there is favoritism, you know, and that's why the relationships matter. But for us to have the platform that we have right now, and to have so many commercial brokers already on our side helping us, you know, what they are doing, you know, uploading what David's doing, uploading all that information for you to do with what you want. You know, you can reach out to each and every one of those sellers personally. And, you know, and I think, and I stated that on Slack, that if you do that, and you can go to them with several different offers, which is, you know, I'll buy this property right now cash, or I'll offer you, you know, X number of dollars for the property, but I need this amount of time to close it. And if you can't strike up a sale with them, then you can say, you know, hey, I have a very good friend of mine who is a broker who will, I can't pay you what you want, but he might be willing to list it for you and get you that amount of money from someone else. So I think, need to give that back to the person that is providing you that kind of value. And Daryl's doing the same thing with the market research.
Yeah.
And as long as you've got people like that are helping you, we've got to find ways to add value back to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe it's not, we can't add value back by giving them a listing. But I tell you what, I darn well probably, strongly consider having a person like that on your team. When they can provide you that kind of information, maybe you want to give them a small cut of a deal, even though, they weren't able to provide something this time, but they've been providing for you over and over and over again. That kind of goes back to what I've been saying about getting some of these tech guys on board to do stuff for us. I'll gladly give them a small piece of equity of every deal that I do if they can provide me some tools. And that's the path that I'm trying to take with Badri at Avestor right now. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but he's on the platform checking it out right now. And I'm going to try very hard to pitch that deal to him so that we can use this platform for free and use all of his tools and resources for free.
That's great. Yeah.
So,
That's what I was gonna ask once we finish the conversation. And I think I missed your Slack post about it, but I wanted to know how we were handling that information that David put out there. I mean, it's such an incredible resource. I was looking at the Jacksonville market there, and I just didn't want to, overstep any boundaries. I mean, I would definitely reach out to him. I didn't get a chance to yet, but that's my question. How did we come up with like how we're handling that information? Just like you said, just reaching out to the folks on there, direct mailing or calls even.
yeah, I would always try to see how I could benefit the people that are on the platform, providing the value.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take that to a Jacksonville broker and say, hey, Bo Berry, I want to partner with you on this to do that. Now, if
platform, without a doubt.
If Bo wants to come on board, I would say, but you won't always necessarily be able to provide the kind of value that you want in return. And the important thing, as long as we're continuing to try, we're trying to build relationships, we're trying to find ways to benefit each other. But no, I don't. It's hard to lay down hard, fast rules for things like that, Jim. That's one of the reasons I'm, when I started doing this, I'm like, look, man, the most important thing for us is to try to be good stewards, good people, go-givers, and not cut people out, not be, I'll step on your throat if I have to get to where I'm going. And if we're like that, then it becomes a little bit easier for us not to have a hard and fast rule. Otherwise, we make a hard and fast rule and it really limits what you can do. It really puts you in a bind. I mean, think about the broker that called Trevor, think of the salesperson under him is really limited by what his broker's reaction was. He will be very hesitant about his interaction with Trevor or anyone else the next time something like this comes up. He knows what his boss wants. And by having that kind of rigidity in place, it really, it puts a lot of limitations. It doesn't mean that I don't want best practices. I do. I need to go ahead and start a folder for best practices and SOPs. And we need to start trying to agree as a group that we are going to incorporate these things into our relationships with sellers, buyers, investors, LPs, GPs, joint ventures, and start in legal practices, best practices on PPMs, best practices on contracts, best practices on LOIs, and do that. One of the ones that's very obvious right now tonight, we need to probably put together some type of buyer broker contract that is good for us, that covers us, that favors us, and not to the detriment of someone else, but if one side is going to gain more favor, then we need to protect ourselves.
Well, I know any deal that I come across with potential, it's coming right to here. I guarantee that. That's good.
So I'll tell you, there's a lot of strategies with that information that David put up. I would love to be in a position right now to use tech to deploy all that information for the good of everybody that's on the platform, but we're not there right now. And if somebody has ideas, I am absolutely 100%. I love, you know, brainstorming and trying to come up with good solutions with how to use that data. I can tell you how I have already been gathering that data locally for my young guys here in Chicagoland. And I can tell you how I've been doing it and what the structure that we're putting together. So we're building out basically an apartment owners association. So like a GOB, apartment owners association. And I want the idea to be, it's like a nonprofit. Whether or not we go through the legal steps of making it a nonprofit, I still haven't decided yet, because somebody has to bear that cost. And I have, right now, I pay to have unlimited LLCs, but nonprofits are not included in that. If it were, then I would just do it, you know, or if it were just an LLC, I would just do it without regard to, you know, who it's benefiting. I don't care, because I've paid for it. I'll benefit everyone that I can. But having said that, I'm still up in the air about that piece of it. We can still operate with a nonprofit mindset, a nonprofit mission statement. Okay. And as long as we're not taking in profit per se, then we don't need to worry about whether or not it's a nonprofit. Why do you seek nonprofit status anyway? It's just a tax protection piece. And also it gives the illusion that you're not trying to profit off of what you're doing. And trust me when I tell you, that's an illusion. It's not true. But having said that, that is the vehicle, that is the mindset that we're going to pursue with an apartment owners association that can benefit anyone who wants to join the association. Now, all of those already exist, but we're going to provide, just like the GOB platform, provide something that all the other platforms don't. So all these platforms already exist, right? We just have to do it a different way if we want ours to succeed. And so we're going to do the same thing with the Apartment Owners Association. So we're going to create an Apartment Owners Association. And one of the first things that we're going to do is we belong to several other apartment associations. So we can regurgitate a lot of the information that we're already receiving, right? So bulletins about what's going on in local government, whether it be city, county, or state, we can regurgitate that into some type of video or blog or even an email blast, whatever that looks like. Okay. And so that's free information. All that takes is our time to curate that information. It doesn't cost us anything financially to get it, other than we are members of those associations and we were going to be members regardless. Okay. So that's one thing that we can do. And who do we give that to? Well, all the people that are already members there are already receiving that. So that is no benefit for them. But all of the other apartment owners that are not on those platforms could get benefit from that. So why are they not already on those platforms? Most of them, the biggest reason is they don't see value. And a lot of times when you don't see value, there's two different pieces to value, right? One of them is I'm cheap. I'm not going to pay for what I can go find on my own. But the reality is I never go find it on my own. But I'm so cheap, I just won't pay for it. You know, I'm not going to give you $100 a year to keep me informed. So we could offer it for free and use the freemium model. Or we could offer it for such a reduced price, you know, $1 a month or $10 a year or $20 a year. You know, anything that's drastically less than what the other associations are charging, then you can potentially pick up a lot more customers. But here's the real reason we're doing it. It's not just to provide that information, but also to provide the kind of training that most of those associations don't provide. We can take from the GOB platform all of the best practices, all of the articles that we have on good property management, all of the things that we evaluate in regard to different platforms and tools and resources, and provide that kind of information to them that the normal associations don't provide. But taking that one step further, and this is the piece that this is the nexus of the whole idea. We're going to offer quasi accounting services free of charge, or for a very, very, very low fee. And why would we do that? Why would we're going to offer them property management back-end software. Okay, so we're going to provide them the kind of software that allows them to have a P&L statement. It allows them to have a T12 and a T3. Why would we do that? No guesses?
Well, maybe to keep, I'm thinking my brain is going to the point where when they are ready to sell their
Absolutely.
apartments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they're not ready to sell to us. We're not asking them to. We're offering them a very, very, very valuable service that they don't have right now. So we get an opportunity, if we like that building, to create a T12 for the building. We get the opportunity to see exactly how it's being operated. The kind of inside information right now that you can't get, right? You have to buy blind. So we can create that if we're patient. We can create that on a lot of properties that we're interested in. And not only do we now have all the numbers, but also we're controlling the checkbook in those situations. We'll even take control and start to manage some of this for you. Now we're going to charge a little bit of a fee for that, but we're not in it for the property management fee. We're in it to get in the middle. Like we were talking about earlier, insert yourself in the middle of the deal. So we're inserting ourselves so that we're going to be the first one to know when they're ready to sell. Now, we may or may not in the beginning try to offer checkbook control where we're taking over full property management. What we're going to do is offer a piece of property management, which is the back end. Okay, so I have a Bill DM account and I can add additional doors for very, very little cost. Okay, so I can use that to start creating all these financials. And when that person is ready to sell, who's the first person they're going to come to and say, hey, I need my financials. I'm getting ready to sell. Oh, really? Okay. So now opportunity opens itself. And also when we see them operating and they're operating poorly, and we'll see when they have pain points, we'll see that their expense ratio is running really high. And why it's running high, and if it's a tenant problem or if it's a cash flow problem, they don't want to fix things because they don't have the money. You know, we'll see all that behind the scenes stuff. So when we see pain points, we don't have to wait for them to come to us and say, I'm ready to sell. You know, we can reach out again and say, you know, hey, I just want you to know if this becomes too much, you know, then we can offer solutions. And we may grow that into a property management where we actually then offer, if you want to pay us more, we'll take over the day-to-day management. Okay, but in the beginning, we don't need to offer that. But we can vertically grow a business, you know, from this idea if we want to. But really, all we really want to do is start to see the financials. That's all we want to do. And if we can start to see the financials, then we need, and we're doing it in a non-threatening way, by the way, guys. What always happens when a broker or a buyer asks to see the financials? They get stonewalled. I don't have that. Oh, we don't keep records. You know, blah, 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 blah. So what we're doing is offering them a professional service for either a very, very low fee or free. And we understand that you don't have it. We want to help you get it because in this business, This is kind of a bare minimum, guys. You need to do this or else you don't know if you're making money or not. You don't know where your problems are until you start tracking these things. So we're going to provide that for you. We're going to provide you a very clear picture of what your investment is doing. Well, why would you do that? Well, we have a nonprofit mission statement to help as many people as we can, and try to provide that service. And that's not untrue. You are providing that service. Do you have other motives? Yes, you do. Are you hoping that you'll benefit in the back end? Yes, you are. Just like me, I tell you guys, look, this GOB network is a passion project for me, and it has become even more so every single day. But when I started it, I didn't start it with the mindset of Mother Teresa. I started it with, I'm going to test the boundary of the abundance mentality and see if I give enough, will it come back and benefit me some other way? And that's really the same idea. We're just now shifting it to this list that David has put together. And my guys were already doing that at the local county recorder's office. They were already building those lists. This just sped up the process and made it easier for us to get a jump start.
It's an innovative approach, like an indirect solicitation,
Yeah,
so to
don't
speak.
ask.
Yeah.
The easiest way to get something is not to have to ask for it.
So you think every market has a apartment owners association? I would think they would.
Any market that has more than 50,000 people probably has something, but it doesn't matter. Even if they have one, I guarantee you none of them are offering this. Not a single one of them are offering this. And you can still go in and eventually, if you wanted to, you could supplant even these really big national ones, or at the very least, they would have to change their business model to match yours, or else they would risk eventually, just like when Encyclopedia Britannica and World Book didn't change, this little bitty upstart Wikipedia just wiped them off the map. And it was a David and Goliath story. And this has the potential to be the same thing.
Yep.
If they don't adapt, then, and now obviously we would have to want to take it, at least from a city, county, to a state level, but that wouldn't be that hard to do. There's lots of people that are already out there doing, the basic idea. We would just need to take kind of ownership of a platform and say, look, we'll offer to step in, but we're going to change the name and we're going to change some of the practices, but we need all of you guys to keep doing what you're doing. And this is something that, we can brainstorm like we are tonight and figure out, okay, here's some limitations to the strategy. Here's some best practices on how we want to roll it out and those kind of things. And we could roll this out in every market.
Maybe we can put together a meetup like this with that as a topic, David involved and everything, and get everybody's input and see where we can go with it. That'd be great.
So what?
Yeah, I had something. I had something I wanted to run by you guys.
Go ahead, Joe.
So there's, there's a lot of us other, some of the other people I work with, and another mastermind I'm part of, we're all military veterans. And people over time have developed friendships and partnerships within the other mastermind. And one of the other teams, so not the immediate team that I'm working in, one of the other teams had contacted me months ago, and they were interested in Atlanta, and they knew I was living in Atlanta and no longer active duty. So I'm here full time, and I have the construction engineering background, and I want to do asset management. So they contacted me and said, hey, if we did find something in Atlanta, we're all active duty. So we would do as much as we can, but would you be willing to do the asset management for us? So I said, sure, and at the time they didn't have a deal. So it was, every week or every other week, they'd call me and say, hey, we got a property in the, greater Atlanta area. You mind taking a look at it with the broker and, letting us know what you think, letting us know about renovation costs, this and that. So that was the relationship, a month ago. And then they ended up finding something that's like a large portfolio. And now it's like, holy crap, we have over 600 units. Due diligence is coming really quick. And, they said, hey, can you help us with this? And I'm feeling a little overwhelmed because I'm still the only person that's here. And 600, I'm working a corporate W-2 on the side. Up until this point, real estate has been a side hustle for me. And when we talked, I think both of us were thinking that things were going to be a little bit smaller, right? Maybe they get a 50 unit or 100 unit and it's in the Atlanta MSA. This one is about an hour and a half south. So not only am I doing the corporate W-2 in Atlanta, which thank God it's, I'm working from home, so I have some flexibility, but now I'm jumping into over 600 units and it's an hour and a half outside of Atlanta, So we're having a meeting tomorrow, and this is where it gets even more complicated because I said to him, over 600 units, like, this is huge, right? Like, I'm not going to have much time in the next few months to work with my team, my immediate team, on taking down a deal because, I'm going to be going through due diligence on several different properties, an hour and a half outside the city, and doing, the best job I can as an asset manager. So we're having a meeting tomorrow, basically between our two teams, my team and their team, to discuss kind of what this looks like, right? It's a huge portfolio. So it's like, there's plenty of work to do in terms of two teams working on it. So the dynamic is kind of like, it's their deal, but we're kind of coming to the table and we're definitely providing the asset management. And, the other thought is that we help capital raise, right? Because it's such a large deal. Anyone taking down something like that would need help capital raising. So that's kind of where we're at. I just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on, how do we structure that with two separate teams? We get it. It's their deal. They've made it clear that they don't want to co-sponsor. So it's just, we're doing an introductory call, but the bottom line is due diligence is coming real quick. And, we got to start negotiating what this actually looks like so that,
So
we have
how did
clear.
the two teams come
Yeah.
together, Joe?
Really, it was me because.
Is it all through the military meetups and stuff? So everybody involved is military?
Yes.
Okay. So how many people are on your team? How many are on their team?
We have 4, they have 4.
Okay. And they don't want to co-sponsor. They just want to pay you guys to perform certain duties. Is that am I correct in that?
Right. It's basically asset management. And then, in an effort to get the rest of my team involved, we said, we can help raise capital too. So that's basically it. We're coming to the table with those two kind of duties. And we're trying to, we're doing an introductory call tomorrow, but really quick, we need to kind of negotiate and come to an agreement on what the details of that look like.
Well, okay. It's a little bit tough because we're dealing with a lot of unknowns that we don't know. But I will say that you have more power than you realize. And so you can choose to give that power up, or you can choose not to give it up. And always remember, there's going to be lots of deals. And don't
Right.
feel the pressure of getting into one if you don't feel that you're being treated fairly.
Right.
Don't take advantage of it. I tell a lot of people that not every single deal, but most of the deals that I do with brand new people that have never done a deal before, I take a much bigger cut on that first deal. And the
Right.
reason I do is my risk is much, much, much higher. And
Mhm.
so even though they are doing probably almost all of the work, I'm still taking a bigger cut. And a lot of times people get offended by that and they're hurt by that. Okay. And that's fine. I remind them all the time, look, I am not the kind of guy who is going to try to pressure you into doing this out of greed. I'm only doing it trying to protect my downside. That's all I'm doing it for. You can find someone else. You can find someone who will probably do it with a different structure. So just keep
Right.
that in mind, how much you're willing to give up and why you're willing to give it up. Okay. The other piece is,
21
you
hours.
have to evaluate your friendships with those people and what that means to you. But I would also, when they say they don't want to co-sponsor, that's very, very confusing to me.
Yes.
So what do they mean by that? They don't want to co-sponsor because they're asking you to be the asset manager. So are they asking to just pay you the asset management fee and nothing else? No participation in any way?
Well, I think it's in terms of like the branding, right? When they market it and they talk to investors, it's it's marketed as their deal. It's not going to be like sponsored by this team and this team.
Mm,
They found the deal, they negotiated back and forth with the seller. They have done a lot of work up front.
yeah,
It's definitely their deal. It's not like
yeah.
we found it first. But they need the asset management, and
Can-
based on the brief conversation and negotiations that we had before a deal was even found, we had said that before it was I would get a 2% asset management fee, and then I would get like 2% of the GP, or at least a slice of the GP, right? Like
Right.
I want some skin in the game.
Right.
But this is different. Because it's 654 units, I don't want 2%, right? The 2% to me, that's great. I could, if everything works out right and that 2% starts coming in the mail, I could leave my W-2, but I'm just not prepared to do that, right? So I'd rather take like 1% and be able to keep my W-2 and just have an agreement that, we're splitting the asset management. Like there's too much work for one person, and I'd rather work on it. Even if I'm the only boots on the ground, we have a very strong property manager, and we're going to have people in the leasing offices, so I can establish relationship with them. I don't think it can't be done with me being the only boots on the ground, but I'm scared to take too much of the asset management fee and then start being on the phone all day, every day, because I'm expected to do everything,
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so are they looking for you to manage the entire portfolio?
Yes. As
Okay.
an asset manager, yes.
So my follow-up question to that is, so once the asset is required, what role is the other team going to be playing from that point on? It sounds like you're going to be doing most of the work and, getting the, not even near the lion's share of the profits.
Right. So you're saying my immediate team, the team
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm on?
Yeah, your guys
Like
will be managing the asset.
The entire team.
Yeah.
All
And
8 people. It sounds like if you're getting the asset management fee, you're doing all of the work once you take over. So your work
Right.
will last for five years or more, I think is the point Jim's trying to make.
Yeah, like what role will they be playing once, they don't want to co-GP with you, but so what are they going to be doing once the asset is acquired? It sounds like you're going to be doing a lot of the work.
Right. No, you're right. I will be doing the asset management, and that's why the fee would go to me. It wouldn't,
Right.
the asset management fee wouldn't be split with my team, because I would be doing all the asset management.
Will you be entitled to any share of the cash flow or the equity?
Right. So that's kind of where we're at, right? Like we know that we're going to get, like my immediate team, we're going to negotiate some sort of skin in the game, some sort of equity, but we need to figure out what that looks like, you know, how much, and then how do we split that on our team? I'm okay with saying, let's take that and roll it into deals for the team, right? I'm okay with that. Knowing that the actual work I'm doing day to day as an asset manager, I'm getting paid for that through the fee. But does that sound crazy to you guys?
I guess, Joe, I got another question, follow up on James's, and I apologize for stepping over it. In the due diligence, are you going to handle the due diligence of these 654 units? And then once the property closes, then you become the asset manager going forward, correct?
So the property manager that we're using, I mean, they're nationally, I mean, they're very large and they're very good at this. So they're going to help out a ton with the due diligence. But to answer your question, I mean, I am, you know, the other people from the primary team, they're going to be flying in. They're going to be here for a large portion of the actual due diligence. I mean, it's 6 separate properties. I mean, it's a ton, right? Over 600 units, and it's the due diligence period is only 21 days. So it's like,
Wow.
Jeez.
yeah, like I physically, you know, I'd have to be there full time. It's like almost like 2 people would have to be there full time.
Well, that's what my question was, is are you expected to be on site to manage the managers? And it sounds like it is. And yeah, it's going to be a full-time job. I mean, 654 units, that's going to be 10 hours a day for those 20 days, you know, or more. I mean, yeah, I mean, you got to negotiate. And then how is that property manager being paid? You need to ask that question. How are they compensating that property manager? Because they're not flying their people in and, you know, not paying them for flying in. So ask them that question too, and kind of structure something like that for you.
And I would make
Yeah,
sure-
I mean, well, that's the other thing is I have to be very transparent with saying, you know, I'm not available full time, right? Like I'm keeping my corporate W-2. I can work remote. Like I can work from down there, right? If I had to go down there 4 days a week, I could do that. But, you know, I still have to put in some time on the W-2. I can't just
right.
You got to have
full-time
a
asset
process
manager. So.
set up where these people can feed you information, and then
Right.
So you stay with your fingers in the pie of what's going on. Okay, how many units we get done a day? You know, we're going to meet this 1 days. You know, you got to set those processes up, those work streams. You know, if they don't get 10 or 20 a day done, what do? You know, do you race down there? I mean, you know, and
Right.
how are you going to be compensated in that interim before, let's say they don't get the property and you're down there and somehow, God forbid, you lose your W-2 job because you're down there doing that. How do you get compensated?
Well, yeah, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen, right?
No. Yeah, I know. But
Well, that's a contingency that you do need to think about.
yeah,
It could happen.
yeah. And I would ask how the
true.
property management people, when they're flying people in like that, they've got to have some kind of agreement. And again, correct me, Jim.
Well, I know the property manager's getting 21,000 before due diligence starts. They're getting that money.
Yeah, because they got to pay their people to put them on planes, put them in hotels, and all that stuff. And I would think that's what you need to ask for you and your team. You know, in conjunction with, hey, I'm going to take it on after that 2 or 3% to manage it, because 654 units, that's not going to be, you know, 1 or 2 hours a day. That's probably going to be 3 or 4 hours a day just handling, you know, renewals. I mean, and again, I don't have any experience managing that many, but I've managed, you know, 50 or 60 on the residential side. And that's a full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I want to make sure that we're splitting the asset management fee, right? Because then it's clear, you know, that we're splitting the duties of asset management.
Doesn't
Like-
all fall on you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I didn't want to steal the conversation
No,
tonight,
that's fine.
but it's a big meeting we're having tomorrow, and and we're all like friends separately, right? We've met only virtually, right? That's how we do it in COVID now. But we had prior relationships, so I know we're gonna get along. It's just everyone knows you want to hash out the details so the expectations are clear before you get too deep into anything.
So why, usually you have people on these GP teams, and you've got 8 guys. My experience is most of them, if they're not in the lane of, I want to be a capital raiser, and that's my primary, investor relations, that's what I want to do. But the guys that are the numbers guys and project management guys and deal finders almost always want to get involved. And you're saying none of them want to be involved with asset management, that you're the only one.
Well, no, we haven't talked about it in detail. Tomorrow starts that conversation. And I know one of them on their team, he is the primary asset manager, but for the Atlanta market, he's still active duty. So
well, remember, Joe, with an asset manager, like Pat said, you're managing managers. So you've got to think it's a C-suite level type of job a lot of times. You're giving direction, you're measuring and tracking a lot of KPIs, it's a project management position. So you just
Right.
have to make sure the projects are being measured and tracked. That's your biggest role.
Yeah.
And to hold accountable when things fall below a certain metric.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really your day-to-day job. And so you could do that from afar. You don't need to be boots on the ground to do that.
right.
Now, do you need to visit the property to verify that these things are being done? That you're being told, okay, they're meeting all your metrics. But then when you do a site visit, it doesn't measure up. Okay. So
Right.
you don't have to be there all the time. You can have someone else helping you with this, and you can split duties with someone. And if no one wants to do it, I would take the full fee. And if I felt overwhelmed, I would hire somebody. You could take the full
Yeah.
asset management fee, go hire a professional third-party property manager and tell them, look, I'll pay you X number of dollars. I'm going to make 100. I'll pay you $95. But you have to share with me and train me on every aspect of what you're doing. And I want this asset manager to be a very experienced asset manager that's doing this for thousands of units and been doing it for more than, a year or two. So
Right.
that's always an option. You
Yeah.
also,
And it's, like you said, asset management is managing the managers, and it is something you can do remote. So that's why I think they're going to want to hear that, right? Like I think they would rather have me split the duties because they want to be more involved, right? This is their deal. So,
okay. Well, if you think that, then you can still take all the fees and just be very, very transparent, and always be very communicative. If they're willing to
Right.
give you all the asset management fee, but you have to have a written agreement that states, guys, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of phone calls, and I'm going to need other people when I'm busy to step in and help me with that. How you guys decide to divvy that up, that's where things become very sticky and difficult. And
right.
but it's not to say that you couldn't do it. And if you get in trouble, I guarantee you there's enough people just on the GOB network that want to learn to become asset managers that, you could say, hey, look, come and assist me with this. I'll pay you a small fee, or come and assist me with this, almost like an intern, and see if you
Right.
get any takers.
Yeah.
Point.
No, that's
My advice is to
my
make
hunch
sure,
is
make
Go
sure
ahead.
that you have everything clear. Everybody's friends till it hits the fan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's the
Everybody's
problem.
friends. I love
Yeah.
everybody until it hits the fan, or I think I'm being taken advantage by
Yeah.
the others.
Yeah.
And it gets messy. So just
Yeah.
make sure you've got clear lanes. That's all I can say is clear lanes.
So Trevor has had this experience already and had to step in and become the emergency asset manager. And so,
Okay.
you know, he's been there where, you know, he was basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, you pretty much did this at no cost just to protect your downside. You know,
And to learn.
yeah. And so there's people out there who will step forward, you know, that are invested in the deal, or even people that just want to learn and help out.
Yeah.
But to Trevor's, you got to think about what's the worst that could happen. And that's what you need to make sure you've got covered in written language.
Yeah. But if they have all the power and you do all the work, it's an impossible situation to keep both sides happy.
Yeah.
I was going to say also, if you're doing the brunt of the asset management, be comfortable with the fee that you're getting, because you'll also be driving the revenue for that property as well. And if you're, you know, limited on the cash flow and the equity, you know, make sure you're comfortable with your asset management fee, because remotely or, you know, on the ground, it sounds like it could be a lot of work.
Yeah. Here's what I would do. What if you had to go down there every single weekend for 18 months and spend the weekend there? Are you
That would be,
prepared to do that?
I mean, if
You
the
have to
price
be-
was right.
You have to be brutally
Exactly.
honest with yourself about that. What effect is that going to have on your marriage? What effect is that going to have on your relationship with your children? You know, are you truly willing to do that? And you say, if the price is right, okay, would you do it for a 10% management fee? Yeah, sure. But nobody's going to pay that.
Right.
You know, but they might say, okay, I'll do it, but I would only do it if I'm getting the full asset management fee and X percent of the equity. You know, I'm getting a percent of the GP. There's more in this. If this fell into your lap and you really got no help from anybody, what are you prepared to do, and how much are you willing? How much do you want to get compensated for doing that? And that's the way you need to be structuring this, with that in mind, because those worst case scenarios come to fruition a lot more often than the rosy ones that we paint for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm writing some things down. I got a lot
The
to
asset
think
manager
through. I
is in a
appreciate
good
it.
position. The asset manager is in a good position. You know, you'll be driving the deal for these guys. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And,
you know, and
and
that's
technically, you need to be very clear about that. Who makes the rules,
right.
and who hires the property manager? Who decides to fire the property manager? You know, if I'm not happy with the leasing agent, who has the power to demand from the property manager, hey, either replace the leasing agent or we're going to give you a 30-day notice? You know, who has the power
Yeah.
to drive how much you're actually going to spend when you need a new roof? Who's going to make that decision? Who's going to make the decision when it's a $5,000 air conditioning job that needs to be done? Who, you know, who has to sign off on that? Who has the real power? Because if you don't have any of those powers, then you're not really the asset manager. You're just kind of a gopher for somebody. You're a project manager. You know, the project
Right.
manager has to get permission to write any checks over, you know, X amount of dollars.
Exactly. And that's part of it, right? If it's not our deal, right, it's their deal, you know, I'm given a CapEx budget and expected to do all these things.
Yeah.
But where does my decision ability stop, right? And yeah, so I mean, those are all conversations that we have to have this week. But I appreciate the feedback. This is helpful.
I'd also add, like Jim too, is, you know, on your part, who can fire you? What if I guess my question is they're not letting you into the GP where are you in this? You're just an employee. You're a 1099. How are you? You're getting 2% of the asset management fee. I think you would have to be part of the GP legally some way to get that. That's where I would ask those questions like, okay, am I just a 1099? Who's makes the decision? Someday comes in and says, hey, this Joe guy's taking too much of our profit. He's gone. What's the process, for letting your team or you go without any compensation? Because it's kind of weird to me that they wouldn't let you in on the GP side.
Well, no, we are getting a GP portion. We have to negotiate that, but they know that we're getting some sort of portion of the GP. It is confusing, right? Because they said they'll give us portion of the GP, but they said they don't want to co-sponsor, right? So to me, that means.
Yeah, let's clarify that. They don't want co-branding.
Right.
You are co-sponsoring. You're going to get a piece of the pie for raising capital, and you might get a piece of the pie for asset management or some other pieces. So you are co-sponsoring. But
I mean, technically, right? But I think what they're trying to do is retain decision control, right? If it's their deal, right? It's just like,
well, that always boils down to percents.
Yeah, you're going to be married at the hip for 5 years.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you guys are eyeball to eyeball and not, hey, Joe's come in and we're friends, but today I don't like him. He's gone. I mean, that's
it.
Well, I've learned from too many equal partnerships that there's never equal partnerships. There's only equal splits.
Yeah.
And I've given up way too much, way too often. And that's why I say I take a much bigger piece. I might take 50% of the first deal of the GP, 50% of the GP. And I'll tell people, look, I'll take 50, 35, and 25. And then after that, we'll negotiate. But I'm doing that to protect my downside in those decision-making processes. And so I don't disagree that somebody needs to kind of be in control. I can give you all the control and give you all the rope to do everything I want you to do and give you a budget and a set of guidelines. But when you're not meeting them, whether it's your fault or not, I have to be in a position to make decisions. And I can only do that if my percent is bigger than your percent.
Right.
So I don't think 50-50 partnerships are necessarily a good thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback. This is helpful.
And the one thing to Pat's, if you're a 1099 employee, in other words, they pay you the asset management fee and you really didn't have any GP, then they could kick you completely out of the deal at any time. Now, if you are getting paid the asset management fee and you're part of the GP, they can never kick you out of the deal. But according to the language of the operating agreement and the PPM, they may be able to replace you as asset manager and take that fee away from you. Which if you're not performing, hey, you're not performing. I got overwhelmed. I thought I could do it and I can't. So yeah, take it over.
Gotcha.
Or give me some help and I'll give a piece of it back. But I didn't expect that I would be, and maybe you want to clarify that. How many hours do you expect this to take of my day? How many hours a day? And that even that can be nebulous. I had a partner recently that said, man, I'm working on this all day long, but could never quantify or prove. Everything he said was, I'm on the phone for 3 hours. Okay, can you show me phone records? Well, I don't track my phone records like that. Okay, well, at least show me a phone record saying who you called, how long show me your bill. No, I can't do that. So when you're not quantifying things that can't be measured, it's kind of, it leaves you in a real nebulous area.
Right. Yeah, and that was what I was thinking, right? Like I'm willing to go down there for the entire due diligence period. But after that, I mean, I definitely want to be clear that, I'll drive down there 2 to 3 times a week, right? For X% of the asset management fee. But, you know, I'm not going to be there Monday through Friday. I'm not going to be there every
And-
weekend.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Well, I would lay out on that regard. I would not lay out, I'd be down there 2 or 3 days a week. Absolutely
Okay.
would not. As an asset manager, that's not your primary job. Sometimes you have to do that because you're an owner, not an asset manager. Sometimes you're the same guy, but sometimes you're not. So I would never hire an asset manager and expect them to be there every day. That's the job of the property manager. Your job
Got
is
it.
to manage them.
But there is going to be, I mean, there are some renovations involved, right? So there's also going to be some supervision of construction, right? Like before we pay contractors, it would be nice if I saw the work that was done
It would
to
be.
verify, right?
And-
I mean,
And the property management, if they have a construction team, they should have a project manager ahead of the team. That's their job, not your job. They're getting paid to do that. Your job is to make sure that their project manager is doing that. Does he have reports that he can show you? Is he sending you a photo update of that job, before and after?
Video
Is he
feed.
calling you daily, giving you an update? That's your job. If you want to see it in person, then that's fantastic. Great for you. Go do that. You know, that gives you some peace of mind and some pride in how you guys are progressing, but it's not your job.
right.
Okay. So you have to hold them accountable, not by physically going there, but by saying, hey, pull out your phone, send me a picture. And by the way,
Right.
that picture's not good enough. You know, you did, you know, $3,000 worth of work today. And you, or let's simplify it. You installed a new hot water heater. Don't take a picture of the receipt and send it to me.
Right.
Don't take a picture of the label of the hot water heater and send it to me. I want a picture of the hot water heater. I want a picture of the receipt. I want a picture of the piping, you know, the electrical that you connected, how you connected it. Show me the connection. You know, is it gas? Did you use the right lines? You know, I need to see pictures that I can verify the way you did it.
I
So I
gotcha.
need enough of that information to
Maybe-
verify without me having to physically drive there. Well, that's a pain in the ass. We don't have to do that for anybody. Well, if you want this job, you have to do it now. This is the way we run our business.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's helpful.
So on that note, my brother-in-law is a professional engineer, and I go tag along with him on job sites. And just speaking of heaters, you know, you have to make sure that the piping and the tubes going into the walls are fully, you know, insulated and covered, and so there's no backup of the fumes. There's a lot that could, you know, cause a problem. You want to make sure these guys are showing you all of that. That's absolutely right.
Right.
I got to run, but one thing, it sounds like they've already hired the property management company. You need to make sure with the expectations were set with them before they were hired. In other words, are they managing all the rehabs? Are they managing all the due diligence?
Yeah,
Huge,
and
real big
I
thing.
do feel comfortable with the property manager. I was actually the one that introduced them to the property manager. So it's not like I haven't been working with them. And if we were to acquire a property, we would use them too. So,
That's
but
good.
yeah, I agree. We want to make sure that their costs are including construction management.
Well, that's the other piece too, is on the due diligence. Who is, you know, who was responsible or is responsible for hiring them to do due diligence? What are the expectations of the due diligence? Who's managing that? Because typically that is an asset manager's job. Okay, you need due diligence. I'm not doing it, but I will hire the right people to do it. And this is what I expect from them. And if the other owners have different expectations, then you guys, you know, you hash that out in a meeting, say, okay, here's who I'm hiring and here's the guidelines. Here's the scope of work that I've given them. And if they don't agree with the scope of work, then let's hash that out and talk about it before I hire them.
Right.
I'd love to hear how this unfolds. If you
Yeah.
would want to share, maybe in next week's call.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Better run, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right, I
see.
think
I
it's
gotta
time
get
for-
going too.
Yeah,
Okay.
time for all of us. We've had a good one. So, all right, guys,
Thanks,
this
guys.
is exactly what this one is
Girls.
meant to be. So I'm glad
Very-
that we had some good discussion tonight.
Take care.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
everybody.
you.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
See you on the next one.
All right, see you guys.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.